I'm here today with John Mathon. John is the founder of Agile Stacks and also CEO. John, welcome to today's show.
Thank you. Good to see you, Aaron.
So Agile Stacks, for the listeners, before we get into the company, let's take the history, your background from school, your educational, what you've done in the past, and bringing you up to date.
Okay, well, my big background, I went to MIT, and I met a friend there, and one of the most peculiar things is we both knew we wanted to start a company together, and it was only a few years when we finally met. I could get him out here in California, and we started this company called Tibco Software, and it was very successful. We conquered the financial industry and Wall Street in a matter of 5 years. We had 50% market share throughout all of Wall Street and the world, really, in financial industry, and the company was, amazing. We invented this thing called publish subscribe, and patented the idea and made the technology so that people could distribute information very easily around enterprises, but eventually everywhere. So this idea of publish subscribe now has become really prominent in things like IoT, and also even in the cloud. We're starting to see more and more that's around this publish subscribe idea. So the idea lives on. And I've been very vocal in supporting, the progress of IoT and publish subscribe, and moving the industry, in that direction, and following it with some cool ideas and companies and stuff. So my latest Agile Stacks, I'll tell you about if you're interested.
Sure, and when you're moving into first the Tibco arena, really what they on the subscription model, also newswires, do they also take hold of this, like the Reuters and?
Right. Well, one of the things that we found was that information of all sorts can be distributed through publish subscribe very easily. It's a great model, and so the news organizations picked up on it. Reuters bought Tibco at one point, and then we actually split apart and had a sort of a partial ownership by Reuters. So it was a spin out, and that was kind of interesting. But all of the news companies eventually modeled, a lot of their stuff on the publish subscribe model. So it's been a very powerful effect on lots of industries.
So John, you're always constantly thinking outside the box, looking at the next big idea, and really bringing change to our individual lives. But when we look at Agile Stacks, touch on the vision there. What inspired you to do this, and what do you really see for the vision of the future?
Yeah, so one of the things, I've always worked in enterprise IT and helping companies, and that's what I know. I'd love to do consumer stuff more, but that's just what I got, to seem to get pinned into. People seem to think I'm good at that. So, and I have a lot of ideas. So I have been talking to a lot of businesses over the last 5 years or so, and one of the problems that I see a lot of businesses having is going into the cloud and building their infrastructure to offer services. It's a very tough thing, and only the biggest companies like Google and Apple and Facebook and stuff have done it well. A lot of other companies are struggling, and we know, though, from Gartner and just my experience, millions of companies want to go into the cloud and start offering services. It's exploding. As the cost of the cloud goes down, more and more businesses want to just take all their operations and move it to the cloud. And the problem is it's very difficult to move, especially a lot of older industries and stuff and businesses, into the cloud. So I saw the problem at my last open source company that I was working at, where people were trying to deploy these services, multiple services at the same time, and they couldn't make them work. They didn't know how to make it reliable, how to make it secure. A lot of knowledge is missing from many companies, and they don't have a good resource to get quality information. And so I saw this serious problem that a lot of organizations were going to fail at getting to the cloud. And so I have developed a technology not unlike publish subscribe in some ways. There is a publish subscribe component kind of concept in here. So it's a leverage of some old ideas, but some new ideas. And it enables us to take large numbers of components in technology and integrate them and make them work in the cloud without having to have all the expertise, and giving you what we call like a Google-like infrastructure out of the box, like we're day one, and you can run like Google. I mean, it's amazing. So it's a brilliant way, I think, and it's going to help a lot of companies get to the cloud faster and better.
I'm visiting here today with John Mathon. He is the founder of Agile Stacks. And John, I need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
I love fishing, with my family.
I think it would be easier to use a net.
It was so much fun.
The times when we are together, it makes it all the more worth it.
Having Dad teach them how to cast a fly rod, and
as long as we're doing stuff together, we're having fun.
Some people see a father and a son fishing together, while others see a succession plan. Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with John Mathon. He is the founder of Agile Stacks. And John, we're talking about the history of what you've done in the past, MIT graduate, and starting right out of school, essentially at TIBCO, very successful public company, and then this new idea coming for Agile Stacks is more of an enterprise business software model that's helping companies move to the cloud. But what are some of the barriers of entry that you face as you're getting ready to roll this software out?
Well, there's several things that I could talk about. One is just starting the company has been kind of a challenge, Alan. This has been a tough market right now. I don't know if you know, but a lot of VCs aren't investing. It's been a tough thing to go out and raise money right now. A lot of people will mention that. I think that's a good thing, though, actually, because when times are tough like this and it's hard to raise money, it means there's less competitors, and it means some of the best companies in the world have been built during times when it's been harder to raise money, and so I look at that actually as a positive. So not a lot of competition, not a lot of people thinking about the same things, and that's a benefit. So the other thing is that as we've talked to the VCs and to different people and companies, we've refined our idea, and you find this is very common in a lot of small companies, even at TIBCO. I remember, we had originally 3 vectors that we were going out on, and we ended up having to decide on one finally, and it took a while to figure it out. And with Agile Stacks, we have, had to think about our message, our value proposition very clearly and carefully over the last several months as we've talked to different people, and it's really helped us gel the ideas. It's a very positive process, actually, in a lot of ways. Even though you get rejected a lot, even though you're facing a lot of issues, the product itself, though, is remarkably simple idea to help companies get going forward. And this is one of the most exciting things I've seen. I have started other technology companies before, and when I go in and talk, there's always 50%, 60, 70% of companies don't need it, not interested. When I go in and talk about Agile Stacks, and we talk about the problems of getting into it, everybody is doing it. I mean, there's hardly a company I talk to that isn't interested and needs the kind of thing we're talking about. So it's been very exciting for me to go and just talk to people and find, how they all have the same problem over and over and over again. Just so many companies. So the cloud is pervasive right now. Everybody is moving into the cloud. It's becoming a crowded space, but there's a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw an article come across my desk that talked about how much Google and Apple are really they're buying up companies, big data companies, AI companies, as quick as they can. And what do you think's behind all this? In terms of is that a good move in terms of what you're, how you see it, or are they trying to kill the competition, or?
Yeah, there's so many good ideas out there, and I guess Google and Apple and other companies are recognizing that it's a lot easier to acquire something that's a good idea than it is to build it yourself. And so, it's very typical for companies to go out and like that and buy all kinds of companies. And I think you're right that there is an accelerated curve of acquisitions because there's so much out there. It's just a very exciting time, actually. I call it the virtuous circle, but there is an enormous innovation curve going on right now where we have an exponential growth in technology, ideas, And every idea feeds other ideas, which then drives technology even faster. And so I don't think the companies can keep up with it. They need to buy people with good ideas, because that's where everything is, and it's going to continue to be that way.
I heard that a friend of mine recently, we were talked about the information overload that we're in
Yes.
right now. That there's so much stuff, so much change, so much information, that we really need to transition to AI in order to get stuff processed.
That's an interesting perspective. It is like we used to say at MIT that it was like drinking from a fire hose, because you had so much stuff you had to absorb so quickly. But I have found my whole life is like that. I mean, it's just a constant stream of massive amounts of information growing exponentially. Keeping up with today's technology is hard enough. I actually call this the age of magic. And the reason I use the term age of magic is when you don't know what is possible, when you don't know the technology behind it, it can seem as if it was magic that people can do these things. When I look at my cell phone, it's just astonishing the data rates that we can get through these things, the amount of applications and data that can fit on the phones and stuff. It boggles your mind if you have any knowledge of the technology involved. It's just amazing. And the more you know, the more boggling it is in a way. So, and there's new innovations coming down, like digital antennas that are revolutionizing cell phones and other technologies in IoT that are going to really improve the performance, the battery life, the bandwidth, and everything. So there's more change coming. It's not like we've reached the end of this at all. It's actually accelerating, and there's a lot of things happening that are extremely exciting. So I can definitely see all these companies accelerating their purchases. I can't see how they can stop.
I'm visiting here today with John Mathon. He's the founder of Agile Stacks, and I need to take a quick break.
Sure.
And we'll be right back after these messages. Since you can't take your wealth with you, spend time with your family. Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with John Mathon. He is the founder of Agile Stacks. And John, a lot of our listeners are business owners or entrepreneurs, and they may not have the strong background, though, in tech. Could you explain for the listeners a case scenario of full stack automation and how that would affect their business, and maybe some real-life examples?
Oh, yeah. It's a really great one. So I'm very lucky that I, through the years, have had a lot of good people that I've met and experiences. And one of them is in the Netherlands, is a company called Yenlo, and the president, Ruben there. He's become a great partner of mine in the building of this Agile Stacks, and has introduced me to a number of companies in Europe and stuff as we build the company. And they do consulting all over the world, and are a great company for consulting. So Ruben took me into a company called QB, which is an IoT company that makes thermostats and energy monitors for the home in Europe. It's like the Nest of Europe. Mm-hmm. They have shipped 10 million of these devices, or are trying to ship 10 million of these devices around. But they have a huge problem in building the IT to support all those devices. They have struggled with getting the qualified people that they need and building that infrastructure and really making it happen. And it's very interesting. When I first started talking at QB, I was very early. This is just a few months, but it was very early in the Agile Stacks, and I didn't really want to talk to them since they were a Yenlo customer. So I was just listening, and I asked them, well, how are you doing as far as the cloud deployments and stuff? And they went into a tirade and basically told me the whole story of how painful this was and how they would like to buy pre-made stacks, if they could, of technology, because they just didn't want to deal with this. It wasn't their core business to do enterprise infrastructure. Their core business revolves around their IoT device and the applications and the consumers and things like that. They didn't really want to spend half of their time developing the infrastructure for it. They wanted that off the shelf, which was astonishing to me, because that was what I was planning to do. And they just basically told me before I even mentioned anything that they wanted that. That's really exciting from a businessman's point of view, is to have a customer just tell you, that what you're doing before you even mention it to them, that's what they want. I've had that experience several times now.
It was interesting that, not to digress here, but last night I went down and I was having some light bulbs replaced, and I went down and I saw this Philips Hue light bulb,
yeah.
and I thought, multiple colors. I've never had a light bulb that would change
Yeah.
colors before. So I go home, I put in the light bulbs, and it has all this Wi-Fi connection. And then I thought, now how do I get it to change colors? Well, I found, you have to buy the templates for $5 on on Applebee, and I could see the same thing. A lot of businesses don't want to be inside of developing these performers and templates really to scale out. So
Right.
Yeah.
So we expect to enable a lot of companies to move faster and have much higher security. I mean, one of the big issues with any enterprise today going to the cloud is security, reliability, things like that. How do you make it really reliable? But security especially, there's so much threat from people, attacking and just concerns that having high quality security in your infrastructure is something that a lot of people don't know how to do. And
if I could, it used to be that when we would buy the PC, then we'd upgrade to the next Pentium chip or AMD, and we would see the immediate performance. But in the cloud, because the desktop has been removed essentially from us, we no longer see the speed that things are processed. But can you give us a little bit of update where we're going with this and the speed of the cloud, and what are the barriers right now that in the technology that people are trying to work through so we can get to the next level?
That is actually a really pertinent question. There's two angles on that, I think, really that are important. One is we have reached the end of Moore's law. It's, we did that actually several years ago. Computers have not gotten faster. We've been stuck at about 2 to 3 gigahertz for a long time now. And what we've done instead is we've increased the number of processing units. But that depends on being able to divide the work effectively between those units. If the work can't be divided, then it can't go any faster. And so we're stuck with a lot of times our processing not being able to grow as fast as we want. This is particularly important when it comes to AI applications or things that have a lot of computational that is involved. There's two angles that, one is the I/O limitation, just the sheer amount of I/O of data in and out needs to be massively increased. And we have the capacity to do that. And I'm working with a company that's actually going to buy some of our Agile Stacks that's going to dramatically increase the performance of the I/O operations in the CPU. It's a major improvement in overall performance of computers that could be arriving in the next 2 or 3 years to finally get back into Moore's law maybe, or start to get faster and faster. The other angle, of course, is quantum computers, and we're seeing a lot of advances on the quantum computer front, but we're far from making that for general computational purposes. But there's a lot of applications of those that are starting to evolve that could be interesting. Google, as you know, and other companies are using it for some work in the back office and doing stuff behind the scenes. But it's happening, and I think in the next 10 years we're going to definitely see a huge impact from that as well.
Elon Musk recently gave a speech before it was published in The Guardian in June of this year, and it completely turned my head where he said, and I think it dwells upon the quantum computing and the laws of physics and how in the same amount of space you could have 6 dimensions of time. And Elon came out and said the following. He says, it's 1 billion to 1 likelihood that we're inside of a virtual world. And I thought, these guys have founded Tesla, these SpaceX. I said, oh, Elon, that's out there. But he said, he made the following point. He goes, either we're at the end of the world or we're going to really transcend into something new when we start to move this next dimension of virtual reality and AI. So,
well, I've heard the same comments from Elon, and he says that he has had long discussions with people about the VR, the idea of are we in the Matrix, and And he's apparently concluded that we are in a matrix. And I haven't really thought about it long enough to say whether we're in a matrix or not.
Yeah.
But I can't discount it either.
Yeah.
you
All I
know,
can say
so-
is Gene Roddenberry, when he did Star Trek, he gave us a good perspective of moving through. Our minds are, I've once heard, as good as AI is, they're not going to ever overcome, what the human mind can do.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's a fascinating topic. I've studied this a lot and thought about it quite a bit. Because I studied AI back at MIT, and so it's been a topic of great interest to me. And we divide AI into what we call ANI, narrow intelligence, then general intelligence, and then superior intelligence. And we're really doing ANI, what we call now narrow intelligence, which means we can play Go, we can play computer games pretty good. We can do some things like that. We're not good at building computers that can think beyond a narrow region and they're not even really thinking, they're not planning, they're actually just recognizing things and stuff. So we're still early, and I don't know but one of my heroes in this is a guy named Roger Penrose. He's a famous mathematician and physicist from London, and he has proposed that the human mind is a quantum computer. And actually maybe many quantum computers. And he's laid a lot of theoretical foundation for that and worked with some people. And what this means is that, and I think this makes a lot of sense, the brain operates at a different level. What happens in quantum mechanics is things proceed from one state to another. And when they do, they jump from one state to another. And this is kind of, if you think about it, the way the mind seems to work. Like when you think about something, you don't think in a logical step-by-step fashion a lot. A lot of times it just jumps at you what the answer is. And that is very similar to the way quantum mechanics works, actually. When it tunnels through a plant chlorophyll and produces the energy for the plant, it does it in almost like a magical way, the way quantum mechanics works. And in the same way, Roger Penrose basically postulates and shows that the brain could work this way. There could be quantum operations happening in the brain. Some physicists don't believe this. They say it's too wet, this and that, but there has been work done to show it's not. What that means is that if the brain is operating as a quantum computer, it's able to process information so much faster than a computer could that it may be unreachable for a regular computer to ever get to intelligence. But there's several other implications of this. One is that the way quantum mechanics works is it occurs in space. In the space, the underlying vacuum of space is where quantum operations happen. And what that means is that our brains, if they are actually operating in quantum space, that our consciousness is really in quantum space, not in our physical brains. Our brains are transducers or proxies for our intelligence and our consciousness, which would then be in space, quantum space. As a result, when you die, according to a theory like this, you may not, your physical body, the transducer from quantum space may go away, but your consciousness may still exist. Now, without the senses of eyes and ears, maybe that consciousness doesn't have anywhere to go. I don't know. But we don't know about this. But this is the kind of thing I think that people don't realize. Like the world is full of like knots of new mysteries, new possibilities that even scientists can't deny could be happening. And if that's true, and Roger is one of the most brilliant people ever to exist. He may be smarter than Einstein, and if he believes this, I think people should look at it. It's not a stupid idea.
No, and I think I think the further we go, the more we're beginning to understand about how the quantum mechanics is transcending multiple dimensions, and the science of creation, and I think that's one thing that Elon was trying to bring out in his recent comment is that he says, okay, as we move forward, guys, put your seatbelt on, because either we're coming to the end of the world or we're going to have some major breakthroughs on where this technology is all going.
Yeah, I strongly believe with Alon that we are on the cusp of a lot of new breakthroughs. That's why I called it the age of magic. I think we're going to see a lot more magic coming on over the next 5-10 years, and a lot of big changes happening in the world over the next 5-10 years.
So John, let's jump back to person wants more information on Agile Stacks. How would they go about that?
They can go to our website. We're in stealth mode, but we're going to launch the website very shortly, and that's one way. Just stay tuned.
John, thanks for being on today's show.
Okay, thank you, Alan.